Hey, this video is about the compound effect as it is applied to habits, and it really fits in with the theme of the month, which has been all about habit creation. And what we want to talk about in this case is the idea that growth comes in little increments. And this is important for us to see because often I think what happens is we get this grand idea about everything we want to change in the new year. We put these massive plans out there and it's just not sustainable. It's so much at one time that we end up overwhelming ourselves and nothing gets done. Or we start out real strong, but we burn out, we run out of fuel before the month is even up. And so we're not able to maintain, and it just becomes more data we use to show ourselves how we aren't able to do what we say we're going to do, and how we can't change, and how it's never going to be different. And so that is why this idea that little increments is what creates lasting change is so helpful because it frees us from this idea that we have to make all of these drastic changes, and it helps us to take little steps along the way. What I find often happens though is people don't like this concept. They want to make massive change and they want it now because they want right now to feel better, to be better in their mind. And so that's why they put out all of these grandiose ideas about how to do that. And while well-intentioned that is, you're trying to get to that better place for yourself, it really can hold us back. And so that's why I think it is so important to talk about this idea. That's also why the theme for this month around habits is the idea of habit stacking, which is just one new habit a month, one simple change a month that we're stacking, just like the compound effect, so that by the end of the year, we've stacked all of these habits together and from that have had that massive transformation. So in this video, we're going to talk about what the compound effect is, where this idea came from. It is not my own. And then we're going to talk also about how you can apply this to your life and then how you can also use it with existing habits, because I think that can be super helpful way to get an into starting new habits. All right, so first, what is the compound effect? Well, this concept is one I discovered by reading Darren Hardy's book by the same name, The Compound Effect. And in this book, it talks about how through making little changes, taking little steps throughout your life every day, you create massive growth for yourself years later. And it follows that idea that we always overestimate what we can do in the short term and underestimate what we can do in the long term. The compound effect plays off of that by helping you to just focus on little itty bitty changes that you can make now, so that in the long term, you've had this massive change that you couldn't even have fathomed for yourself, but through the little increments, you are able to get there. And so that's what this book's about. I highly recommend it. And that's what this concept, the compound effect, is that we're applying to habits. So when we think about it with habits, that's really, again, what I mentioned habit stacking is it's just one little change each month. So this month, you have one habit you're working on. Maybe it's getting up at a certain time. Maybe it's no longer eating popcorn while you watch TV. Maybe it's leaving work at a specific time. So it's some type of habit you've committed to that month. And that's the only thing that you're focused on for that month in terms of goals. That's the thing. And it can somehow relate to your overarching year vision. So if you have some type of 2020 resolution or goal, you can choose habits that relate to it. But the idea is that you're focused on this specific habit, this little change that is going to compound over time to make massive progress. Okay, so that is what the compound effect is. How can we apply it? So what I'd offer is it can help to see how this has already come to play for you. So I want you to think about in your life what habits that you have that have compounded over time. because you've already been applying this concept, you just maybe haven't known it. An example that I think pretty much all of us, or at least most of us, can relate to is around brushing our teeth. There was a time when we were younger when that wasn't a habit and it wasn't fun. Maybe it was fun, I don't know, but for a lot of children, they don't want to brush their teeth. But over time, you've each day brushed your teeth, and it's become this habit. But it's not just that it's become this habit, it's also become this compound effect because now you have your teeth. If you didn't brush your teeth every day, you'd be losing all your teeth and you wouldn't have any. And so that's an example of how the compound effect has led to massive transformation for you in the sense that you have your teeth. Another example is really if you think about your career. Wherever you're at now, there were these little steps, these little things you did each day that got you there. Even the simplest, littlest decisions, that book you read, that conversation you had that sparked this one idea that you further explored, and in that exploration, another little idea came up. And these things stacked upon each other until all of a sudden you're at the spot you're at now. Even if where you're at now isn't the end goal, you used this process to get there. And even if where you're at now isn't where you wanted to be, this process was still at play. You just maybe weren't doing it with intention. Maybe it didn't feel as focused, and so you ended up not where you want to go. Because this habit does work, or this concept does work in the opposite too, where you start a habit, maybe it's you just want to watch TV, you want to watch an episode. But you do that one day, and then you get used to it. And the next day you do the same thing. And the next day you do the same thing. All of a sudden you have 5 hours that week that you were watching TV that you could have been doing something more productive, something that you wanted to do. And I'm not saying TV's bad. I'm just saying like that's the choice that was made. Those 5 hours went into watching TV as opposed to something else. And so it's compounded over time. The same happens with sleep and sleep deprivation. It doesn't feel so bad that one day maybe, but over time you start to stack up all this sleep deprivation and it can have some dramatic effects on your health. And so think about this, how this concept has played out in your life, both in the positive and in the negative. And I think it's helpful to get both sides in on it so you can really see how it works. So go ahead, pause this video, brainstorm some ideas for yourself. Just a couple will help you to see, oh, this is happening in my life. Okay, so now that you have that evidence, what we're going to do is talk about a way you can help yourself by using this tactic with your existing habit and with new habits you want to build. So we talked earlier in previous videos about how this month is us choosing one habit, and then each month from now on we'll be adding habits, and that is a way we're using the compound effect. We're stacking our habits in order to have massive transformation. So that's the compound effect at a larger scale. Now, if we zoom in a bit, we chunk down and we see at the smaller scale, the way this can work is we have this new habit that we want to do. Maybe it's that you want to meditate in the morning. So that's the new habit you're wanting to do. How can you help yourself do this habit? Well, one tactic is you can attach it to an existing habit you already do. That's a way for you to use the compound effect, because what you're doing is you're taking a change you already have, you're just adding this other habit to it, and in that way, it's compounding, and over time, you're creating even more change because of the little steps you've been making. So for somebody who makes a client of mine that I worked with, he always made coffee in the morning. That was just a habit he had. It wasn't hard for him to do because he wanted the coffee, right? And the coffee would take some time to brew. And so what he did was he attached the habit of meditating to making coffee. So now whenever he goes to make the coffee, he hits the button to brew it. He uses that time to meditate. He just built it right in. That way it wasn't like he had to carve out all of this new time in his schedule, figure out how to fit it in. He has his own prompt. It's when he makes the coffee. So that's the way he's using this to compound from the existing habit of making coffee and one little step added to it of meditating done every day. And eventually, that's going to have that transformation he's looking for as he's doing it every day. All right. So, what you can do is you can think about an existing habit that you have and think about if there's something you can attach to it. What can you do to help yourself do it? And one thing I want to offer here is our brains don't often like to just stop doing something. They often want to replace it with something else. So to help yourself, like for me this month, my habit that I decided upon was to stop watching TV during the work week. But for me to just say I'm going to stop watching TV for the work week, which is what I said, I started to feel a little uneasy because I had no idea what I was going to do instead. So I gave myself a plan of different things that I could do. We got a new cookbook for our Instant Pot, so my husband and I can start looking through for some fun recipes that we can try. I can start joining some walks that my husband takes my dog on. I can read. I got some different books. We went to the library and scoped it out. So I gave myself a plan ahead of time in order to be able to be ready for when I have the time and not the TV. And so what that does is that's like taking little steps to prepare so that when the time comes and the TV's not on, it's not like I have to figure out every single thing I have to do. I've already done that. I come up with ideas. I've gone to the library. I've bought the books. I've got the cookbook. I'm ready to go. So think for you, what are some things you can do, some little steps you can take, maybe some existing habits you can attach things to help yourself continue forward and use this idea of simple changes in order to make massive transformation over time. Because again, true growth comes in increments, in the little incremental changes that you make. And this is so important because it helps take the pressure off of trying to be this whole new version of you right now and just lets you take little steps to get there. What I'd offer to you is to not use this to be impatient and to wonder and feel like you have to wait forever, because it doesn't take a lot for you to start seeing the changes. So the momentum will build, and we will talk about that even more. But you're building momentum, and you're seeing the momentum, and you're seeing the growth, and it's going to keep coming. So don't worry about that. You can use that to fuel you forward. You don't have to get impatient trying to get all of the results right now, because also the journey there is part of the fun, is the growth, is you seeing all these little things that you're doing, these things you're trying and you're no longer doing, and the tweaks that you're making and the change that comes from that over time. That's what I have for you today. Thank you so much and have a great one. Bye.